Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today my intro is going to be real quick. I'm going to explain exactly how you can use just one brush to get your eyeshadow popping, you know, like doing your eyeshadow like a pro. I'm not even kidding, and it's so easy. If you guys have watched my video on beginners makeup brushes, then you guys know that I endorse this brush. Like I said, if you have no other brush for eyeshadow, at least have this one. So this is a flat brush with a dome shape. It has very long bristles. So other than this brush, something else you're going to need is some wipes. You're going to need some wipes because when you're using one brush, you need to keep cleaning it so that you don't mix your eyeshadow colors. So have your one brush and have your wipes as well, and that's basically all you need, and of course your eyeshadows, and you're good to go. So if you guys want to know how to apply your eyeshadow like a pro using one brush in 3 simple steps, then keep on watching. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and get into this video. So like I said, you're going to need one brush. So this is the brush I'm going to be using for everything in this eyeshadow tutorial, just so that you don't feel like you need to go out and buy 10 brushes for you to be able to get a good, you know, eyeshadow, a good blended eyeshadow look. So I'm going to just use this one brush. Now the first thing, of course, when it comes to eyeshadow is eyebrows. If your eyebrows on fleek, then your eyeshadow stands a way better chance of also being on fleek. So I have 2 eyebrows for you guys who may not be confident in filling in your eyebrows, so you can go ahead and check them out. I'm going to link them both. One is with stencils and one is without, and you can have your eyebrows looking like this. Okay, so once the eyebrows are done, now you have kind of like a clean base for you to go ahead and get started with your eyeshadow. Now before we even get into the 3 actual eyeshadow steps, we need to know like the different parts of the eye, so that I don't throw words and you're like, wait, what's that? So first of all, you guys know the lid. This is the lid. I think everyone knows the lid. And then now we have the crease. Now the crease is this part. If you put your finger, I know I look crazy. If you put your finger in there, you can feel like where your eye is ending. It's like your eye socket. So that's the crease. So every time I say I'm putting this color in the crease, you guys know that it's that part, right? Then after that, we've got above the crease. Now above the crease is literally just that. Where the crease is here, it's now here above the crease. And then finally we have the brow bone. So this is the brow bone just below the brow. Okay, so we've got the lid, the crease, above the crease, and then the brow bone. So now that you know that, you're not going to be lost and like, hey, crease, what's that? So now that you know the parts, you can follow it much better. Okay, so since you're using one brush, you're going to need some wipes. Excuse mine, it's just, yeah, but you're going to need wipes so that every time you use one color of eyeshadow, you can wipe it off and clean it for the next color. Otherwise your eyeshadows are gonna be all mixed up and you're just gonna look like you have a black eye, and that's not what we want. We want a perfectly blended eyeshadow look. Okay, so have some wipes on hand. Now one thing to remember before we get started is how to hold the brush. Yeah, the one brush that we're using. So you don't want to hold it like this, like you're writing. Reason being, your eyeshadow is going to be patchy and it's just not going to look well blended because you're using a very heavy hand when you're using it like this. So you want to actually use it here at the tip, at the corner, right? That gives a light hand and it can get your eyeshadows blended really beautifully. So like this, please, not like this. So now we can get into it. So before we even begin the 3 steps, there's a step 0, which is priming your eyes. So I usually just prime my eyes, you guys know, with just concealer, and I said that with a powder. Now what this does is that it intensifies your eyeshadow colors. Okay, so it makes them really pop. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, where the color looks so good in the palette, but then when you put it on your eyes, it's just like, these are like even 2 different colors. So when you put the concealer under, or the primer, whatever you choose to go with, it makes the eyeshadows actually stay true to color. So if you're using a concealer, you want to set with powder just so that it doesn't crease, the concealer doesn't crease. If you're using a primer, most of the times you don't really need to set it with a powder, but I personally am using a concealer, so we're gonna put this, okay, I'm gonna put this I'm gonna put the concealer and then I'm going to set it with a powder, and then we can get into the 3 steps. So when you're priming, you want to put the primer all over. When I say all over the lid, I don't actually mean just the lid, I mean everything, the whole eye. Something else that the primer does, or the concealer, is that it evens out the tone on your eye, on your lid, right? So your lid could have so many different shades, like one part is darker than the other, and you know, it's just the colors are all over the place. But when you put a primer or a concealer, everything is evened out so well. So now I've put the concealer, and now I'm going to set it with a powder. And since we're using one brush for every single thing we are putting on the eyes, I'm even going to set the concealer with the same brush. So I'm just dabbing it in some powder and then setting that concealer. So now that is done, the eyes are now all like just the same color, basically the same tone, and they're set and ready for the eyeshadow. So now let's get into step number 1. So the first step is putting a transition shade. Don't get scared, it's just a big word for something so small. So basically a transition shade is a shade that you put on your eye to make all the colors you put just blend together. So typically the transition shade is put in this area, so above the crease. So where the crease is here, you want to put your transition shade above the crease. And transition shades are usually very neutral colors. You want to pick browns, you want to pick oranges, you want to pick reds, plums, those kind of tones, because they're supposed to make sure everything blends together. So you can't go in with your shimmery eyeshadows to put above the crease. You want to go with neutral colors. So I'm going to be using a light brown shade from this palette of mine that really just needs deliverance from Jesus, but this is the brown I'm going to be using. Now let me show you a few more neutral colors you could use. This this could be a nice color. You see, it's light but it's a reddish brown tone. This is the one I'm gonna use. I think this one here could also work well as a transition shade. Okay, so for me, like I said, I'm gonna use this one. I love it. You guys can even see that it's quite used. So the brush, the same, the one and only brush is the one we're gonna use. So you just pick up your color, dab. When you're doing eyeshadow, it's good for you to dab so that you don't overdo it. It's much easier to build up color than to do too much, and then now you have to start figuring out how to, you know, tone it down. So pick up your eyeshadow and then tap off the excess, right? And then now you can use it. So we're putting this above the crease using a really light hand. Now when you're blending your transition shade, or any shade for that matter, you can use one of 2 ways. You can either do a swiping motion back and forth like what I'm doing here, a swiping motion gently, or alternatively you could do small circular motions like that. Either way, the job will get done. So now we're done with our transition shade right above the crease, and now we're going to go to the crease. So I usually kind of go from like top to bottom. I start with above the crease, then the crease, then the lid. So now let's go to the crease. Now for the crease, ideally you want to use still neutral colors, but then a bit darker than your transition shade. Why is so that your crease is defined, you know, that socket, you know, it can be really seen, you know, it's so defined. So a dark neutral color can help you define your crease. So when I say neutral colors, again, I mean don't use shimmer. This is not the time for shimmer. Just stick to the neutral colors. So again, the browns, the purple, even purple can be neutral, plums, those kind of colors, the orange tones, but then deeper. So like I had shown you in this palette, this is what I used for my transition shade, right? And this is also a very neutral color, but it's much deeper. So you could use something like this. Alternatively, what I like to do, especially for my crease, is to use blushes. Now blushes are very pigmented and they're deep. Like, you know, these deep plum blushes, they work really well as a crease shade. So for me, I'm going to use this blush I have. It's a really deep plum shade. I'm not gonna show you because it is broken and it is just another one that needs Jesus. So this is now the time to take your wipe and just clean up your brush, because you don't want the colors to mix, otherwise you won't get that nicely blended effect. So clean that brush and then let's put this crease shade on. So you pick up your crease shade and again you tap off. Better to have less and build than too much and don't know what to do with it, right? So we're putting this directly in the crease. Now when you're putting the crease shade, you don't need to worry about it getting on the lid. We're gonna clean that up. Also, when you're putting your crease shade, you don't want to go past the corner of your eye. So if you want to know where you should reach, you just take your brush and kind of measure from the end of your nose and the end of your eye. So you don't want to pass there. And then when it comes to the inner corner, you don't want to go past 3/4 of your eye. So you leave about 1/4, something like that. So you're gonna reach here and here. Now you can build up color. So you start with a little bit on the crease and then you keep building until you like how it looks. So for me right now, I think this is a good enough amount. So I think I'm good. Oh, by the way, you guys, that was step 2. So now we can go to step 3. Now step 3 is now the lid. Now this is the main part that everyone thinks is eyeshadow, but you guys now can see it's not just about the lid. The whole eye needs attention. So now let's go to the lid. Now the lid is where you can go crazy with your eyeshadow. Shimmery eyeshadow, if you're neutral, if you want glitter. So before we put our lid shade, you can see we have some of that crease color on the lid. So you want to go back in with your concealer or your primer and just put it on the lid to clean it up and prepare it for the star of the show, aka the lid shade. And just blend with your finger. So again, take your brush and clean it so that you're not mixing up those colors. So just clean it with your wipe. I'm going to go with this. It's like a shimmery champagne color. This is what I'm going to go in with. You can literally go with any color. Now here there are no restrictions. And now finally we're kind of like using the flat part of the brush, because initially we were using the dome shape part, but then now we're using the flat part. And what you want to do is pick up your lid shade and pack it onto your lid. So you don't want to do this, because that's basically putting eyeshadow and then removing. So you want to pack it on like that. So now once you've covered the whole lid with your lid shade, you're basically almost done, but then you need to go back in and blend this sharp edge between the lid and the crease so that it kind of just like fades. So again, clean that brush, make sure it doesn't have any product on it as you go into blend. Yeah, so don't forget how to hold it with your light hand and just blend the two back and forth motions or your circular motions. So just a note, when you're blending, you don't have any product on the brush. It's just a clean brush because you're just blending. So don't put the crease shade on the brush or the lid shade. You just blend when it's clean. Now that looks pretty well blended to me, but we're going to clean the brush yet again. And now we're going to blend the crease shade and the transition shade, just so that it's even just that gradient effect can come through. Yeah, so that looks pretty blended. I don't know if you guys can see, I hope the light is good enough, but you can see there's kind of like a gradient and fading effect. And you guys, if you have mastered this technique, what I have just shown you today, then you are good to go when it comes to any kind of eyeshadow application. All you'll need to do is switch up your colors, but if you have this technique down, girl, you are good to go. Okay, now the last thing that we're going to do is just put a highlight on the brow bone, because that's kind of usually just the last thing, is to put a highlight on the brow bone just to make it pop. So again, clean that brush and then now get your highlight. So you pick up your highlighter and you just place it on the brow bone like so. So now your eye has a nice shimmer. And then we're going to clean the brush for the last time and just blend the transition shade and the highlight. So like so. And there you have it, guys. It is a wrap. It's done. Now everything you do from here has nothing to do with eyeshadow, because now you're gonna put on your eyeliner, you're gonna put on your false lashes, you're gonna put on your mascara if it's just mascara, and then maybe you're going to line your lower waterline. But other than that, the eyeshadow look is actually done and it's beautiful. It's fading off. And we just did it with one brush. We just did it with one brush, you guys. So you shouldn't feel like, I have to wait until I get a set for me to be able to do this eyeshadow looks, man. No, one brush will do. So now let me put some eyeliner. So now I've done eyeliner and mascara, and I think you guys can tell it pulls the whole look together. So mascara especially, you can skip the eyeliner, but I would say go for the mascara because it just brings everything together. Okay, and then also something else that I like to do is to put a highlighter in the inner corner of my eyes. So same highlighter I've used on my brow bone and everywhere else on my face, I just take it with my finger and I dab it into the inner corners of my eyes. Now also you can choose to leave it at this, or if you want to be a bit extra, you can go ahead and put on lashes, and I'm gonna put on some lashes and then I'll be right back. So I went ahead and put on my false lashes and smacked on some lipstick to finish off the look, and this is actually the finished look. And I think you guys now for sure have seen that applying eyeshadow is just as simple as that. If you follow those 3 steps, you're going to be good to go when it comes to any kind of eyeshadow look. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you learned a thing or two, give it a thumbs up, and of course share this video with your friends so that y'all can stay together by slaying together, right? So share this video with your friends, and of course leave me a comment down below letting me know if you enjoyed the video, if I've made it a bit easier for you to put eyeshadow on, or anything, even just saying hi. Say hi, okay? And yeah, I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Mwah!